Hey, what's up everybody? This is Alex with Squeaky's Reef here. I've been doing a lot of unboxing videos, and it's been a while since I did, a real update on the tank, and so I figured I was up for one. It's been about 3 months. I think it's like 14 weeks maybe since the end of my cycle, since zero nitrates and zero phosphates. And I just wanted to give an update on the fish that I've had, the coral and how everything's doing, and the near tank crash that I had. And what's going on currently right now is the anemones and how they're settling in. The first thing I want to touch on here is how my parameters have been. All of my calcium, alkalinity, and magnesium is as stable as I'd love it to be. I have alkalinity right at around 10, calcium at 440, and magnesium at 1350, and they're all pretty darn steady. I know at the end of my last video I was having problems with having zero nitrates and zero phosphates, so I was cutting off my refugium time, like that the light was on at night, and I was dialing that down, and I was increasing my feedings, and I did start to get noticeable nitrite and phosphate levels. But what happened is that I had more phosphates than I wanted and not enough nitrates, so I bought some PhosGuard and tried to lower it. Originally it was 2 nitrates and 0.08 phosphates, and I'd love about 2 nitrates and 0.03 phosphates. But all the PhosGuard did was hold me at 0.08, and my nitrates climbed to 4. So now if I can have both of those numbers, I'll be pretty happy. So I dialed my refugium light back up to, I think it's like 10 hours a night, to try and pull both of them out equally. And I'm going to do a pretty decent, like 20% water change tomorrow that I'm hoping will both kind of level those out, and I can get them somewhere where I want them. Because zero wasn't working, you could tell, people weren't happy, but I don't want them to get out of control either. So in addition to that, it's the first week that it's been really, really hot here where I live, and our air conditioner in our house has been having trouble keeping up. So that means the temperature of the tank raised to almost 80 degrees for like 5 days in a row in the middle, and that was a fluctuation I'm not happy about. And I'm having a hard time getting my pH above 8, you know what I mean? It's just not high as I like it. And I mean, all of the limits that I've just given there are all on the edges of the acceptable range, but it's just not really the center, which is what I'm trying to shoot for. So I have a couple of things that I'm going to try out for all that. So in the interest of getting bad out of the way, I guess we'll talk about who's not doing well in the tank first. I cracked this chalice when I was cleaning the back glass with my magnet cleaner, and it's just not going to work. I thought if I put one piece on the rock and one piece on the back wall, maybe it would recover, but nah. And so this Zoa on the bottom of the rock here hasn't opened up in about a week. I didn't really want to mess with it. I wanted to see if it was just the lighting or the flow, but tomorrow I'm going to get in there and pull it out and maybe dip it again and make sure there's nothing on it, and then try it in a different spot. And then the Zoa on top of the rock here too, like 1 or 2 polyps of the cluster will open up a day, but it's not, like the 6 that it was when I put it in my tank. So I'm going to look into that tomorrow. But everyone else in the Zoa garden looks great. In fact, the pink sprinkles that I got from another reefer was growing so well that you could tell it was going to get really invasive and just take over the rock. So I had to pick it up and banish it to the back wall, and I'm hoping that it'll just pick up there and it'll be kind of cool backdrop. But I'm just going to leave all this alone. I'm not going to touch any of it. I'm hoping that I can grow these all out into, fist-sized colonies by the end of the year. One thing I was a little bit disappointed in was that, I got those 3 jars of 5280 pods, and I hadn't seen any pods in the sump ever. And that was until I came into my tank at night, and I saw how many. You can just see swarms of them on the sand in the display tank sometimes. So I don't know if they just don't like the substrate that I have in the sump and they prefer the sand bed, or if they're just really good hiders down there. But I was pleased to see this because it means that, maybe one day we can add a mandarin goby or something. So with everything being considered together in the totality, I'm actually really happy with where everything is right now. I think things are going smoothly. I see new heads, new polyps on almost everything that's growing well in there. It's not nothing. You're never gonna have everything happy in your tank. But eventually we're gonna have to get down to the really stupid thing that I did, which was, very nearly crash the whole tank, or at least all the fish. So what happened was, at some point during the night that I'm not exactly sure of, or maybe even the day before, a ball valve that went from the return pump into the tank had become loose. The union joint had become loose. And it at one point was rock solid, nothing came out, but I don't know if it got jostled or just time pressure, but eventually it sprung a leak. All of my cords I had in cord management boxes behind the tank, and the plan was to organize them and put covers on it so that nothing could fall in there. But the reality is that just didn't happen. You know, the tank is so heavy, and when I went back there to try to organize the wires, the reality of that was too much to bear, so I didn't, and I left the tops open. And so what happened was, as the water was dripping down, it gave it a place to pool up, and it eventually submerged the power brick for my gyre, which tripped the GFI I had installed and shut the whole tank down, so no water was moving through it or anything. And ironically, I didn't get any sort of alert from that from the Apex at all. It notifies me every single time my Wi-Fi goes out, but it just didn't send me anything. So I didn't even notice this happened until noon when the lights didn't come on, and I went over there to investigate. And I mean, really, I got lucky because the power block for the return pump was also in there, but that one still worked. And I just ran over to PetSmart really quick, and I picked up, a cheap little, it wasn't even, it was, I don't even remember the brand, but it was like $50 for this little power head that I could run while I ordered the backup power supply to be shipped to my house. But the backup power supply worked, and the gyre is working again, but it was definitely a reality check of how, you're riding the knife edge with this hobby, and at any moment, if you make a poor decision or a stroke of luck doesn't break your way and you're not prepared to react to that, you can lose everything in a heartbeat. So it gives you pause. So obviously I took some steps to make sure this can't happen again. The first one is that I pulled all of the power supplies off the floor and I mounted them on the back of my stand so that they all have their own drip loops now. It's not just the plugs. I also bought a little Watchdog leak detection kit. The one that couples with the Apex is like $150, which just seems criminal to me because this one was like $15, and yet it won't send me a text message, but it makes a loud, obnoxious noise, and I'm sure we'll notice it. So I'm hoping that both of those things will keep that from happening again, and obviously I tightened up the joint, and everything in the tank made it, so it didn't end up being a big deal. Now, the last thing that we have to touch on here today is the anemones. I really wanted to get, they say that you're supposed to wait till your tank is more established, but the problem is because especially bubble tip anemones can move, and that's one of the things that I must have in this tank, it makes more sense to me to try and get it in at the beginning so you can build around it instead of having all of your corals built up later and then the anemone moves and stings and you have to move everything around. So I was going to just get a couple rock flower anemones. I found a lady on a yard sale, or not a yard sale, but a Facebook reef group site who had some really great deals. They're like $25 a piece, and then I just ended up getting the bubble tip too because there was a great deal on that, and I wanted to see if everything could work. The problem was that on the day they came, the heat index was 103 degrees, and the FedEx truck, which normally guarantees delivery by 10:30 for my house, doesn't guarantee delivery until 4:30 p.m. So they were out in the FedEx truck until 3:30. The guy, dropped them off all sweaty, and I was just like, oh God, I already know what's gonna happen. So I opened the box, and it's not the seller's fault. There was like an ice pack in there. It was just what it was, but you could tell the blue rock flower anemone had some floating tissue in the bag, and they all kind of smelled. The bubble tip anemone was like really bleached, and I was just like, oh man. So I threw and the other thing is it had to be at work at 5, so I had literally an hour to do an acclimation that I probably should have stretched out into 3. So I floated them for like 25 minutes, and I gave them like a 35-minute drip acclimation, and then I set the rock flowers where I wanted them, but immediately the blue one drifted under the rock, and then when I put the rose bubble tip where I wanted him, he went straight into a big cave too. And he stayed there for like 2 or 3 days, and then eventually he walked out onto the other side of my tank and went into a cave on the other side, and he's been there for about 24 hours, and we're all still waiting to see what's going to happen with him. I don't know if he's going to make it. I mean, the tentacles all, they got their color back. They're red, but he just keeps hiding from the light. So we turned it down a little bit, and I put some covers on there, and we're just going to see if we can't nurse him back. At this point, it's been about a week, and I'm starting to get reasonably confident that at least both of the rock flowers are going to make it. The red and green one set down anchor right where I put him, and I think that blue one will drift back out here. He just needed a couple days. The bubble tip is the only one that I'm curious about, but I'm a little bit optimistic. But other than that, in the near future, the tank, my goal is just going to be to stay out of it, basically. I just want to not put my hands in there for maybe up to a month. I'm going to do this water change tomorrow and try and get these nitrates and phosphates down a little bit now that I have some readable levels. But other than that, I'm not going to do anything. Obviously, I got the last 2 Anthias out of quarantine, and I got them into the display tank. So I have some wrasses that'll be here Tuesday, and I'm just going to try and keep myself occupied with the wrasses on the quarantine tank, because that, will be tricky. I'm getting 4 of them, and it's a small quarantine tank, and I'm expecting a little bit of aggression or sickness. It's always something to keep you on your toes. And I'm going to try and get these anemones to be happy and healthy, and ideally, I want to get my clowns hosting in that anemone. So I have a couple projects over the next month that I can work on and, quit buying stuff for a little while and just kick back and enjoy it. But I'll be doing another update here. Well, obviously, I'm going to do the unboxing on the Anthias on Tuesday, and then I'll do another update in a month or 2 and just check up on how everything's going and keep you all posted. And in the meantime, thanks for tagging along with me on this journey.